Hello and welcome to programming. So in this journey through programming, we are going to be using processing. So processing is a fantastic language that was developed to help artists and designers to learn how to code. So it's a fantastic introduction. It's using a subset of Java as its kind of parent language that it's derived from, and it has immense overlap with JavaScript as well. So it's just a fantastic tool to learn foundational concepts of coding and different methods and ways of programming. So starting on the processing website, processing.org, when you get to the home screen, we can just simply click on download. Now, when you do that, it will analyze whatever machine you're working on, and it will give you, hopefully, the correct version. If not, you can scroll down and choose whatever version you are looking for. So if you're on a Mac, if it knows you're on a Silicon Mac, then it will have that as the default, but otherwise you could download it, put it on a disk, and move it over. So once you download it and get it installed, and get your computer to agree that yes, you downloaded something to your computer that could be harmful, blah, 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 and all that. Well, it's not. It's a great tool for working with. Now, the processing website, we will be referencing down the road because we will use the reference on it. So when we're working, it's really useful to go into the reference to try to learn about doing basic things. So if I want to understand, say, color, I can click down and look at color and see that we have certain things. So creating and reading, but also setting. So how do we set a color? Like we want to set the color for a fill shape, we use the fill command. If we want to set the stroke on it, we can use the stroke command. So these are all basic kinds of things. And you'll see that there's a lot of information to be had here. If you click on any one of those options, it's going to then bring you to a page that gives you more detail on it. You'll see that fill has different things. We can use a single number, we can use 3 numbers, we can use 4 numbers. So there's a lot of options that we can work with as we are specifying color. So we'll learn about that as we progress. But the first step is get processing installed on your computer. So once processing is installed and you launch it, it will always default and create an empty blank sketch for you that is named based on the current date. Now that is something that of course can be modified inside your preferences. If I look at the preferences on a Mac, it's under the processing menu. On Windows under edit, you will see preferences and I can choose that there. It would be nice if the operating systems did standardize that so that it showed up in one place. Now we can see that by default it wants to save projects into a folder that it puts in your documents folder called processing. That's great, but that's not where I want it. So I'm going to customize that. So I'll click on the little folder icon and I am just going to go and choose my programming folder. So now it will default to that. You can also change the size of your editor. I've upsized mine to 18 to make it easier to read in the videos. If you have older, tired eyes, you can do the same as well if you want it to match perfectly to mine. If you're on a high-resolution laptop and you have young, spry eyes, of course you can use more of the default of 12 or 14. Again, whatever works for you while you are doing it. Now I'll click OK. So this is how it defaults the sketch, but I'm going to recommend that we name our projects when we work on it. We name our projects with our actual names and then the name of what the project is. Because one thing that processing does is it creates a sketch file, and later on we'll have assets or data folders in it where we'll put in images or sounds and things like that. And multiple kind of code files will be in that folder. So we need to pay attention to where that folder gets put as well as to what it's called. So I'm going to now just choose Save As, and when I do that, we can see it now is on my programming folder where I want it to be. And what I am going to do is now just name this one. I'll say John McCaffrey, and then I will just call this Start. This is the first project that I'm working on, and now it's been named. Now if I look at the folder, by changing the default folder, it now added the examples, libraries, modes, and templates. So when I add additional elements to processing as I work with it, these folders will be populated by the program. If we don't change the default and we just under Save As always manually navigate to where we're going, then we will see it's there. But here's the name of the folder. Here is my file. You can see when I chose a name, it created a file, and that file now has a .pde, processing document extension here, and that is our code file. Now, of course, you can see I haven't written any code yet, but that's what we'll be doing in a moment. That's why the file is 1 byte in size. It's tiny. Our code files, none of them are going to be big. Even when we write hundreds of lines of code, it still is not big. But one thing that really matters is whatever the name of this file is, the parent folder has to match. They have to have the same name. So if I go and change the name of the folder to something else, that's going to break it when I try to run my project. Or if I change the name of the file within the folder, again, that's going to break it. So the primary code file and its parent folder absolutely must have the same name. So that is super, super critical when we're working. Now, if you're wanting to share what you're working on, the way that you do it is you go to the parent folder, not to the file, but to the parent folder, and right-click on it, and then you're going to choose Compress. And when we compress it, it now makes a .zip file. That's a zipped file. That zip file can be uploaded to online courseware like D2L. It can be emailed. It can be sent around. But it's important to always zip it and send it. Just sending this file, then I have to go and put it into a folder to be able to open it and look at it. So that's not a good way to work. So I'm going to ask that every time you don't zip the file, so you don't go to this file, right click and compress it. And if you're on a Windows computer, you will then right click and you'll choose Send to Compressed Archive, and that creates the zip as well. But we zip the folder, so that zip is what I would send, but there's nothing in it yet really, so we'll just delete it. And now we're back to our file, and there it is, and it's ready to go.